It's funny, I can look back and almost every job I have taken, I'm caring for others. I was a police officer for almost 15 years. That's caring for others and putting others above yourself. So when I first met my husband, I had 4 girls and one of them was 3. And I thought, I am never going to be able to find someone because I have a young child. Brian took on that role as their father, like those kids were his own. Brian was just being medically discharged from the Army when him and I met. And at the time, although he knew that he had some problems, I don't believe he realized how significant the PTSD and the depression was. I was trying to talk him through a flashback that it was way more intense than he realized. Within 6 weeks of us meeting, I realized that there was something more there in what I was doing in our relationship. That brings a whole different dynamic to a loving, close relationship because a caregiver has to step in. You know, we're telling them, our loved one, to do things that oftentimes it's like then we're their mom. I was a police officer for Kansas City, Missouri at the time, and it definitely prepared me for the day that my husband attempted suicide in 2017. We are, as caregivers, on watch 24/7 for our loved ones who have PTSD, who have suicidality. It is like walking on eggshells daily. If I hadn't gotten involved with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, if I hadn't met other caregivers that I can immediately call or text and say, this is what's going on, my journey would be that much more of a struggle. Through the Community Navigator project with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, which was funded by the Wounded Warrior Project, the caregiver themselves, the Elizabeth Dole Fellow, is able to utilize these funds in our community and do what we see as fit, what we see our caregivers need here in Kansas City, Missouri. A lot of times when people hear the word caregiver, it's either, oh, you're caring for someone who is elderly or you're a professional caregiver. They do not think anything about the veterans who have loved ones who are their caregivers. Almost every year since we have been married in 2015, Brian has been inpatient for suicidality. In fact, he is inpatient right now, and that just happened last week. And I think those are the things that our communities have no idea about, that we're experiencing behind the scenes. Let me tell you, the invisible wounds of combat that our communities do not see wreak havoc on family members. And veterans do not heal in a vacuum. You can send them to as much mental health therapy and inpatient programs as you want, but if you are not supporting those that are left behind the scenes, the veteran is not healing because their family isn't either. I started thinking about that and I thought, oh my gosh, what an awesome idea is if for the Community Navigator project, we could put together a yard sign that said, a veteran caregiver lives here, that we saw them, we know what they're doing behind the scenes, as well as to give them some resources and a couple of self-care items. It also gives their neighbors a great talking point in going, oh my gosh, I didn't know a veteran caregiver lived there. What's that? So we set out on a trek to deliver 100 of these yard signs and care packages all over Missouri. But I really think that for caregivers, we often take on this role of caregiving and it becomes our entire identity. So you must find what it is that brings you joy, brings you hope, and is a passion for you to really thrive in your caregiving journey. I also have found a passion that feeds my soul in caring for other caregivers, supporting other caregivers, because As much as I'm able to help another caregiver, it reminds me that my journey is not unique, that I'm not alone in my journey. That has been my biggest self-care in this whole journey.
I'm so proud of many aspects of Wounded Warrior Project's partnership with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, particularly during this year of COVID-19. I'm proud of the Community Navigators program and its intent to more deeply engage with caregivers in local communities and further enhance local systems of care and support for our hidden heroes. As the pandemic has shown us, having a strong support system and the resources to turn to are both so vital to the health and well-being of families in general, but they are so critical to our military families who are seeing their challenges compounded by the coronavirus. To see these grassroots efforts in action this year, as in the inspiring example of caregiver Shawn Moore, who worked to highlight caregivers within her own community, truly shows the power of neighbors helping neighbors.